Yeah, I want to go over this Vietnam War reasoning, the reasons why they really had the Vietnam War. On the very top, buddy elitist, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call them. And I think I made the points pretty clear before, but it's an emotional topic, and sometimes I was really getting at two main points that they were really trying to accomplish there. Not the traditional things that people think. That's what I was getting at. And I also want to point out how this is extremely relevant for the future. Because if the middle class doesn't get hoodwinked and scammed and fooled, they're going to be the most powerful force to be reckoned with. You got to understand the game plan. Now, number one, Vietnam, just like any other war, as Smedley Butler said, well, it's a war is a racket. The Marine Corps Commandant was won the Medal of Honor a couple times, and very truthful Marine. Yeah, war is a racket. It's always a money deal. President Eisenhower, General Eisenhower alluded, as later on when he was president, after he retired, when his going away farewell speech, warned about the military-industrial complex. I know that stuff. I know that. Sometimes wars are created because it's good for the financial interest of people in the United States. They don't fight it, they make money off it. But the point I was making was this too. The USA actually effectively financially helped the North Vietnam also through helping Russia. There was a Lend-Lease. Russia, this is the way they were selling it to the Congress, to wean Russia away to Soviet Union, away from communism, get them into capitalism, show them the way. Oh, it was BS. They lent them Russia money so Russia in turn could buy a lot of big hard goods from Rockefeller's companies or whatever, right? And the deal was supposedly that none of those goods could be used for any kind of military purpose. But in effect, it was. They were be able to use for military purposes, even indirectly or directly. But on top of that, it's almost like if I'm not going to help your military directly, if I help you in some other way financially directly, and that enables you to put more resources to your military, it still helps you militarily one way or the other. Those loans that were given to Russia were later defaulted on by Russia, and they were never paid back. So the American taxpayer basically got stuck with the bill, much, much later, decades later. But the ones that profited by it were the ones that were selling them the goods, the big businesses in the United States, right? That was my number one. That was one point. The war profiting was basically, the U.S. was basically financing both sides of that war. Not completely financing the North Vietnamese side, but indirectly helping the North Vietnamese side by helping Russia. They were selling them like trucks, agricultural equipment, and everything, and all that type of stuff has military uses. But even if it didn't have any military uses, the infusion of goods that basically were paid to, or basically the only way the Russians paid for it was by loans from the United States, which later got forgiven. And who picked up the whole tab? The taxpayer. Now, the other thing with Vietnam, the official thing in the United States, it was said, it was to stop the spread of communism, right? And it was like, I don't know what the hell they're even talking about there exactly, but this is what I want to point out, though. The elite wanted the war in Vietnam. Simple, right? 101. JFK, John F. Kennedy, President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. One of the reasons he was assassinated because he wasn't going to go to war with Vietnam. As a matter of fact, I think it was right after he was assassinated they started sending people there. It was like, the situation, the decision changed completely. And it wasn't the only reason he was assassinated. It was like he was going to investigate the CIA. He was issuing silver certificates, the whole thing, the Federal Reserve, all this stuff. So there was a lot of freaking reasons, there was a lot of people that had entrenched rackets that wanted him out of the way, So LBJ gets in there, and some people say LBJ was behind it because of Huey helicopter. Well, it's one reason. It's usually like a whole pile of reasons, you know. But let me put this to you, because this is another angle a lot of people aren't looking at. The elite, the establishment, killed JFK and had their guy Lyndon Baines Johnson, pursued the war. That was policy of the elite. And LBJ, he pretty much did anything the elite did. You look at June 8th, 1967, the USS Liberty, when it got attacked by unmarked planes from Israel to try to get the U.S. to get in a war with Egypt. LBJ was behind a major cover-up with that stuff. You know that deal, right? He's in a hip pocket, and I don't want to bring up the elite aren't all Jewish. I just want to put that out there. It's a mixture, all right? Some people think it's too... But anyway, the thing is, if you look in the major media is controlled by the elite. But the major media was pushing the anti-war side and also pushing it right in the face of the middle class, who basically bought hook, line, and sinker about the anti-communist rationale for the war, the body count, why the war was evil and everything. But the elite wanted the war. You see what I'm saying? Their whole goal was to demoralize the anti-communist, upright, moral middle class that does not want socialism or communism. That was their whole goal. That's the number 2 reason for the war. That's the elite strategy. Now, I want to put this out for the future, because this sticks in my mind a lot from Major Anatoly Golitsyn, a KGB major who defected in 1961. He's been correct about a number of things, and I don't want to get into all that stuff, but he predicted about, the fall of communism was a ruse and all this kind of garbage. The same people basically are capitalists now. He says that, and you notice even way before major KGB major Anatoly Golitsyn defective, you notice even back in the early 50s and before that, the whole goal is to combine Russia, communist world, with capitalist world into one kind of super global power. It's going to be a hybrid between communism and capitalism, with the elite running it. It's the new world order. Actually, even to go back to the 30s, FDR was their hip pocket guy. He was basically he changed Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He changed the whole freaking policy towards the Soviet Union. That wasn't even recognized as the legitimate government of Russia until FDR came in on the scenes. So, but for the future, what Golitsyn said, and this is where I see it's related to Vietnam, because the whole idea is to demoralize the middle class. He for the future, he's expecting total financial collapse in the West. And then they're going to introduce a type of communism, a hybrid type of communism with a human face. And you look at all this, down with the elite, down with the West, down with the USA stuff. You shouldn't be like that. You should be, sticking with the Bill of Rights, for one, sticking with the USA, exactly what it was formed for, why it was formed, and fighting, any kind of impetus to destroy the existing system and replace it with something else. That's why you even got to watch the alternative media big time, man. It's like Russia Today and all that kind of garbage. So the whole thing, like with Vietnam, was basically they made money off the war, but not even just in a traditional way where you finance in the military, but they were making money off, helping Russia, because Russia paid the major factories and producers and manufacturers in the United States with loaned money from the United States, which later was forgiven. The debt was forgiven. So some people in the U.S. made some serious bucks. And I know about LBJ and Huey helicopter and all that crap. But you got to remember, the elite's policy was to fight Vietnam, and it was to do it in a certain fashion where it was to demoralize the anti-communist, anti-socialist middle class in the United States. That was the elites, not the good goal of the war. That was the Western elite's goal. And there is a lot of similarity between, say, a communist that, you know, is on top. Their family runs all the businesses and stuff in China. Like, they'll put somebody in jail for 2 years, like basically in a Laogai workers' prison because of a bureaucratic mistake. There's not much difference between them and the elite in the United States that put people in jail for freaking smoking a joint, and they put them in prison profits and stuff. It's like they like monopolistic capitalism. It's their scam, it's their racket, and nobody else gets in it. There's not that much difference between the two, even though you're saying they're opposite ideologies. They're not that different. So this is my warning to the middle class, exactly how the scam is. If you understand the scam, you can freaking nail it back good. You know, and in Vietnam, I mean, I don't want to knock anybody, because the North Vietnamese and the communists, they fought very, very hard with little weapons they had. But if there was really a declared war, with no rules of engagement, even if the American soldier wasn't as totally motivated for the war as, somebody fighting on their own land, the forces would have been overwhelming, and in a matter of a few weeks the war would have been won. It would have been too lopsided. But my point is that the elite wanted to demoralize the middle class. They pushed for the war, but then on the major media, which is owned by the elite, they pushed anti-war stuff left and right. I mean, what do you think, even like with the drug policy in the United States? Who pushed against hemp and medicinal marijuana? The elite. And who did they gullibly get hook, line, and sinker to go against it because it was immoral or it was bad and bad for you or whatever in all these different ways? And the middle class. That's why I'm trying to open up the middle class's eyes to the scam game. It wasn't just that we got involved in it, it was a blunder. That was exactly what the elite wanted to do. They want to demoralize the middle class. And in the future, I think there is going to be a financial collapse in the West. And, the people that are like, oh, the Western elite are crooks and all are bad. Yeah, they are. But they were going to try to introduce a type of system that's going to be worse than what we have now. If there's any kind of globalization in the world that should be pushed for globalization, if you want to use that term, it's pushing for the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution of the United States. If that was the law of the land everywhere in the world, there'd be a lot of problems even in China with the elite there. There'd be a lot of problems with Putin's boys and his racket. And if you think he's just a public servant, you're an idiot. And I know it's like if the people in America basically stuck to the real system, the Bill of Rights, it'd be a major problem to the racketeers that we have in the United States too. And I don't like calling them the mafia. They say it's the bankster mafia. Bullshit. The mafia has always been, or at least it has formed originally, against that type of stuff. It's like the underground. And, basically, but, I don't want to get too far off track on that. But, the thing is, people have to recognize really what the Vietnam War was about. It wasn't just to make money. It was to make money. It was like they made a lot more money by financing Russia and selling them things with free loans. And they wanted to demoralize the middle class that was anti-communist and anti-socialistic. And this goal is actually going to come about even today. They're trying this on every front. You see what's going on. And it's quite obvious. If that war was actually tried to be, militarily, and my other point was militarily in Vietnam, the U.S. basically forget about it. I mean, it's like, a giant going against nothing, because it's like the American military is that damn good. They are that damn good. So, it's like, want to tell people the U.S. lost the war. Militarily, definitely not. Definitely not. Even with all the rules of engagement. And they say, oh, the political goals of the war were not met. But if you realize what the political goals of the war really are, they were mad. They were mad. We got some freaking sick bastards that are the elite. That's really what the hell it is. And I want people to understand exactly what their game plan is. And what their game plan is for the future. If there's total financial collapse in the West, as Major Galitzin thinks it might happen, they're going to try to introduce a new system, a type of communism with a human face. Just as long as you know it's coming up, you got an idea as to what the angles are, because, you know, you won't be hitting the smoke and mirrors, you'll be hitting right at the target.